Imagine waking up to find your streets transformed into rivers, cars floating away, and entire neighborhoods disappearing beneath muddy floodwaters. Rescue helicopters circle overhead, while emergency crews race against time to save stranded families. This wasn't the scene from a disaster movie. It was the reality across parts of China in July 2026. Weeks of relentless rainfall unleashed one of the country's most severe flood emergencies of the year. Rivers overflowed, mountainsides collapsed into deadly landslides, and millions of people found themselves facing a rapidly unfolding humanitarian crisis. But what exactly caused these catastrophic floods? Were they simply the result of unusually heavy rain? Or is there a much bigger story involving climate change, rapid urbanization, and the growing challenge of extreme weather? In this video, we'll explain what happened, why it happened, which regions were hit the hardest, how rescue operations unfolded, and what these devastating floods could mean for the future. What happened in July 2026? July is traditionally one of China's wettest months. During this period, seasonal monsoon systems carry enormous amounts of moisture across the country. However, in 2026, weather conditions became far more intense than usual. Powerful rainstorms repeatedly struck northern and southwestern China. Instead of lasting for just a few hours, many areas experienced continuous rainfall over several days. Rivers rapidly filled beyond their capacity, drainage systems struggled to cope, and water spread into cities, towns, and farmland. Within a short period, roads became impassable. Underground transportation systems were threatened. Residential neighborhoods flooded, while landslides cut off access to remote communities. Emergency officials issued multiple weather alerts as rainfall continued to intensify. For millions of residents, daily life came to a standstill. The regions hit the hardest. Several provinces experienced severe flooding, but the impact varied depending on geography. Northern China saw widespread flooding after rivers overflowed following days of heavy rainfall. Major transportation routes were disrupted, forcing authorities to close highways and suspend rail services. Around the Beijing region, surrounding communities dealt with rapidly rising water levels. Although modern flood defenses helped reduce damage in some locations, nearby areas still experienced serious flooding and emergency evacuations. Hebei province was among the hardest-hit regions. Overflowing rivers flooded residential communities and agricultural land, damaging homes, crops, and local infrastructure. Meanwhile, southwestern China faced a different danger. In Chongqing and nearby mountainous areas, heavy rain saturated hillsides until enormous sections of earth suddenly collapsed, triggering destructive landslides. Entire roads disappeared beneath rocks and mud. Search and rescue teams worked around the clock to reach isolated villages where communications had been lost. These landslides demonstrated that flooding isn't only about rising rivers, it also creates dangerous conditions far beyond the floodwaters themselves. How heavy rain turns into catastrophic flooding. Many people assume floods happen simply because it rains too much. The reality is much more complex. Every river has a natural capacity. During normal rainfall, water flows safely downstream. But when enormous volumes of rain fall within a short period, rivers begin rising rapidly. Eventually, the water exceeds the riverbanks. Once that happens, floodwater spreads across nearby land, roads, neighborhoods, and farmland. Cities face an additional challenge. Concrete roads, buildings, parking lots, and sidewalks prevent rainwater from soaking into the ground. Instead, water rushes across hard surfaces and overwhelms storm drainage systems. When drainage systems cannot handle the incoming water quickly enough, urban flooding develops within minutes. Even modern cities with advanced infrastructure can become overwhelmed during exceptionally intense storms. The role of China's geography. China's geography makes flooding especially complicated. The country contains thousands of rivers, massive mountain ranges, densely populated cities, and extensive agricultural regions. Heavy rainfall in mountain areas doesn't simply stay there. Gravity quickly carries water downhill into rivers. Those rivers transport enormous amounts of water toward lower-lying communities. If downstream rivers are already near capacity, even more water arrives from upstream regions. This creates a chain reaction. One storm occurring hundreds of kilometers away can eventually contribute to flooding somewhere else. Mountainous terrain creates another serious risk. As soil becomes saturated with water, it gradually loses stability. Eventually, entire hillsides can collapse without warning. These landslides often move with tremendous speed, destroying roads, homes, and infrastructure in their path. Climate change. Is it making floods worse? Whenever major flooding occurs, one question inevitably follows. Is climate change responsible? Scientists generally avoid blaming any single flood entirely on climate change. However, there is strong scientific evidence that a warming climate increases the likelihood of more intense rainfall events. Warmer air can hold significantly more moisture. When storm systems develop under warmer conditions, they have more water available to release. That often results in heavier downpours over shorter periods. Many climate researchers have observed an increase in extreme rainfall events across various parts of the world during recent decades. China is among the countries experiencing these changing weather patterns. While natural climate variability still plays an important role, scientists warn that rising global temperatures increase the chances of severe weather becoming more frequent. In other words, storms capable of producing catastrophic floods may occur more often than they did several decades ago. The human cost. Floods are not measured only by rainfall totals. Their greatest impact is felt by people. Thousands of families were forced to leave their homes after floodwaters entered residential neighborhoods. Emergency shelters opened to accommodate displaced residents. Children, elderly citizens, and vulnerable communities required immediate assistance. Many businesses temporarily shut down. Schools suspended classes. Hospitals prepared emergency response plans. Agricultural areas suffered extensive damage as crops remained underwater for prolonged periods. For farmers, floods can destroy an entire season's harvest in only a few hours. Livestock losses further increase financial hardship. Transportation disruptions created additional challenges. Flooded highways delayed emergency supplies. Rail services experienced interruptions. Some communities became temporarily isolated until rescue crews restored access. The economic impact extended far beyond flooded streets. Repairing damaged roads, bridges, utilities, homes, and public infrastructure often requires months or even years. Emergency response. As floodwaters rose, Chinese emergency agencies launched large-scale rescue operations. Thousands of emergency responders were deployed across affected regions. Boats rescued residents trapped inside flooded homes. Helicopters delivered supplies to isolated communities where roads had become inaccessible. Authorities also organized precautionary evacuations before water levels reached their highest points. Weather agencies continuously monitored rainfall using satellite imagery, radar systems, and river monitoring stations. Frequent public warnings encouraged residents living in high-risk areas to remain alert and follow evacuation orders. These early warning systems can save lives by giving people valuable time to move to safer locations before conditions become critical. Why flood prediction remains difficult. Despite major advances in weather forecasting, predicting exactly where catastrophic flooding will occur remains extremely challenging. Meteorologists can forecast heavy rainfall with increasing accuracy. However, translating rainfall forecasts into precise flood predictions depends on many additional factors: river levels, ground saturation, local drainage capacity, mountain terrain, reservoir management, urban development. All of these influence how floodwater behaves. Two neighboring communities receiving identical rainfall may experience dramatically different outcomes depending on local geography. This complexity explains why flood forecasting continues to improve, but remains an enormous scientific challenge. Preparing for the future. The July 2026 floods serve as a reminder that extreme weather is becoming an increasingly important global challenge. Governments around the world are investing in stronger flood defenses, improved drainage systems, better forecasting technology, and more resilient infrastructure. Urban planners are also exploring new approaches, including expanding green spaces, restoring wetlands, improving river management, and designing cities that absorb rainfall more effectively. At the same time, climate scientists continue studying how rising temperatures influence rainfall patterns. Understanding these changes will be essential for helping communities prepare for future disasters. No country is completely immune. Floods have affected nations across Asia, Europe, North America, and many other regions in recent years. As populations grow and cities expand, reducing flood risk will require cooperation between governments, engineers, scientists, emergency responders, and local communities. Conclusion: the deadly floods that struck China in July 2026 were not caused by a single factor. They resulted from an unfortunate combination of intense seasonal rainfall, overflowing rivers, vulnerable geography, landslides, urban flooding, and the growing influence of extreme weather. For millions of people, the disaster became a powerful reminder of nature's incredible force. Yet it also highlighted the importance of early warning systems, emergency preparedness, resilient infrastructure, and scientific research. As climate patterns continue evolving, understanding disasters like these becomes more important than ever, not only for China, but for every country facing the growing risks of extreme weather. If you found this explanation informative, consider subscribing for more fact-based documentaries covering global events, natural disasters, climate science, and world affairs. Thank you for watching, and stay safe.